Nuclear reactor embrittlement, metal embrittlement. This is ceramics. You don't really think of metals as ceramics, but there you go. Now you know. Concepts tying words together to bring a further refinement to the meaning of them. So this embrittlement, this metal embrittlement, happens to a lot of things. You've seen it. Old piece of wood dries out, you bend it and it cracks instead of bends. That's embrittlement. It's aging, you know. That's what happens. Things age. But a nuclear reactor, his rules are different. He's not being bombarded by sunlight and changes in the atmosphere that are, from freezing to whatever, 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 50 centigrade, whatever the numbers are out there for human comfort range that we try to keep the world in, but the world doesn't listen to us now. So, reactor embrittlement. If that reactor, any piece of metal sitting around, ages, you see it age. If it rusts, it'll rust. As that rust grows and creeps over the years, the metal disappears and dissipates away. It's also undergoing changes internally that are rather hard to see. So most of the actions sitting out in the sun are actually sun and atmosphere type reactions. The oxygen in the atmosphere is making the iron into an iron oxide, turning it red, the color you can see. And as well, high energy particles are hitting it from the sun. Those are ultraviolet lights that will burn us. We can't see them. They're too high in energy range for the eyes to see, but the skin feels them. So we see with a feel, right? So in a normal day, in a normal planet, we understand what that aging process is pretty well. Pretty well. But now throw in masses of nuclear materials. You've added gamma, alpha, beta, particle decay chains, neutron releases that are abnormal. So you've increased the rates of all of these stressors on these metals that age them quicker. There are things going on like single compounds, single molecules leaching into the metal, kind of like a sponge. Set a sponge next to something wet, and over time it soaks the wetness up, right? And evaporates it out and dissipates it out. But those little things, the particles inside that puddle the sponge soaked up, have migrated up into the sponge. And you go back to the sponge, and now it's crispy and hard instead of soft and supple. It's gained some particles inside that change its features. And eventually this comes so bad you throw the sponge away. It's worn out and it's beat. But you've mechanically abraded it, so you understand. You just take for granted. So the wall of that reactor is sitting there being bombarded by high energy particles that cause the metal, metallurgically, ceramic changes into the crystalline structure of the metal. This is what causes embrittlement. The metal goes from stretchable, that it has to be able to do because of the heating and cooling cycles a reactor goes under. It has to be able to expand and contract without breaking apart, without cracking. But now that material over time has become brittle. It's become very hard. It's stronger than it was in one way, but when it breaks, it's going to shatter. When it expands, it's going to stress and crack instead of just expand and allow that expansion to happen. So that's reactor embrittlement. Now, there was one person that discussed this for decades, Arnie Gunderson. That was one of his specialties. This is one of the things that helped keep the nuclear industry at bay. But our reactor licenses were extended. Those design lives of the reactors were set with our first understandings decades ago of what reactor embrittlement, reactor aging, the metallurgical response of what happens in nuclear conversations, right? Changes the metal, period, end. We don't want nuclear stuff in our metals. You can go to a scrap metal yard and find their radiation detectors. You'll even find out that their operators are probably aware of them and know about them. And they don't go off often. What I saw was a bit worrisome at one of the metal yards and just not enough diligence to know the meters are working. More thoughts and prayers, but that's business. So we know this radiation changes the metallurgy. Now, why does this matter? Corporations out there are trying to extend their reactor licenses. There is a bunch of advantages to doing this because the profits are just through the wall at this point. The amortization schedule for the plant is actually close to finished. It might have a 30 or 50-year loan to pay back, and 30 or 50 years of promises to investors to rape what they can. So inside of this new reactor, the licensing extensions these corporations are knowingly going after, they are ignoring, cutting, breaking the rules about testing for embrittlement, responding to embrittlement. The argument is, well, it hasn't happened yet. That's not a good argument in nuclear chessboard. So there's a short one on a long topic, reactor embrittlement in nuclear applications. Big science, long video, and I'm done.